Not mind me. If you guys feel like you guys have everything you need.
Yeah, do we think the people who are outside are planning on coming in? Those are all expensive.
Want me to go record?
Huh?
Yeah, they can.
Maybe, but they're also setting up a table and all that. So. Is the mic not on?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Is there
Yeah, there should be a walk. So as a moderator, you should probably, because that'll be.
I think we're going to go ahead and begin, and then if others want to join us later, we can always go back and revisit some of the topics that we start with. But hi, I'm Nishi Kumar. I'm an attorney at an organization called the Promise of Justice Initiative. We do a lot of work with incarcerated men and women across Louisiana, and we feel like a lot of the women's stories get lost a lot of times. And so we wanted to host this panel at the summit to make sure that we can bring you the lovely individuals who are doing a lot of this advocacy work, and they can share their stories and their clients' stories. We were going to be joined by Dr. Pam, who is a state contract medical provider who works with incarcerated women at two of the facilities, Hunt and Jetson, but she unfortunately couldn't make it last minute. She did say if anyone has questions specifically to her about the OB services that she's able to provide, she's happy to answer those or have any one-on-one discussions.
What type of service?
So she contracts with the state to provide reproductive health services to women at two of the state-run facilities. I think that's mostly prenatal care, and then maybe a little bit of just like regular gynecological care. She goes to each facility 1/2 day a week. So it's whatever women she's able to see, kind of a 3 or 4 hour period. Okay, so I just wanted to give a brief overview, and then I'll have all of our panelists introduce themselves. I'm not sure how many of you guys know this, but since August of 2016, the women who are incarcerated and detained across Louisiana have really been scattered throughout the state. The facility that they've been being held in, Louisiana Center Institute, sorry, the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women actually flooded in August of 2016. The women were all evacuated, and this is the latest numbers that we have from March of this year, which is a really good just kind of infographic showing you how state, how a lot of facilities have one woman, or sorry, just went down. Would you mind just tapping that computer screen? Sorry. Oh, I'll get it up in a second. But anyway, the infographic that was up there shows how many women are kind of scattered throughout the state, how a lot of local jails or other facilities just have one woman or maybe 5 women, and they're kind of being, I'd say, tossed and lost through the system in a lot of ways, and it's hard for advocates and family members and attorneys to have access while this is happening. The other thing that's been happening is that Louisiana has been home in increasing numbers to people being held civilly as ICE detainees. So immigrant women who are not from here are being held in not just the ICE detention centers, but also in local parish jails. There are contracts with local sheriffs who are paid per day, per bed to house these detainees. They're likely not in compliance with federal regulations that are governing the conditions that detained women are supposed and men are supposed to be being held in, but they're also not equipped to meet the basic civil rights of those people who are being detained. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today on the panel. Real quickly, I would like each panel member just to introduce themselves, including how their work or their experiences have given them insight into the needs of incarcerated and detained women.
Good afternoon. My name is John Adcock. I'm a civil rights public interest attorney in New Orleans. I'm a solo practitioner. I do all kinds of cases, represent prisoners. I do housing discrimination, I do employment discrimination, and kind of whatever else I can do that's interesting and where I can help people who are in trouble. Recently, I've began representing someone. I'll talk a lot more about this later. I began representing someone who was incarcerated in the jail in Gretna, Louisiana, across the river from New Orleans, who went about 7 months into her pregnancy and went into labor while she was in a cell in the infirmary. And for various reasons, she got no care whatsoever. They didn't even go in her cell and check her vitals. And she gave birth right there in her cell without any kind of help whatsoever. Miraculously, she lived and her baby lived. And doing that case, I've covered at least 2 more instances where that's happened in the same jail. So that's been my window kind of into this issue, and it's been very, very eye-opening.
Hi, my name is Dulcinette Morton. I am operations manager of Operation Restoration, transitioning into housing director of Operation Restoration. I am myself a woman who has served time inside of prisons in Louisiana, and our organization focuses on advocacy and reentry and removing as many barriers as we possibly can for women who are returning home from incarceration. But we also teach our college courses inside of the women's prison in Louisiana.
All right, I'm Michelle Ehrenberg. I run an organization called Live Louisiana. We focus on the needs and rights of pregnant people in Louisiana, and that includes incarcerated people and detained people. So, I mean, I think it's unquestionable that the healthcare needs of incarcerated people are not being met in Louisiana. And what we have discovered is, among the most vulnerable are pregnant people that are relying on a system that, quite frankly, wasn't designed by them or for them, and so it's not meeting their needs at all. In Louisiana, as of June, there were over 1,600 females that are incarcerated in the state, and among them, over 1,300 of them are of reproductive age. So we don't really actually have good data in the state about how many of them are pregnant, were pregnant when they entered. We certainly don't have any data on what the maternal health or birth outcomes are for those people who are. So I mean, it's reasonable to imagine that there's dozens or upwards of hundreds of people around the state that are experiencing a wide range of pregnancy outcomes while in jail or in prisons. So my organization has made a commitment to kind of watchdog these facilities and to provide some oversight that we're not seeing from the Department of Corrections or from the state legislature.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamila Johnson, and I'm the managing attorney for the Unanimous Jury Project at PJI. And she did a fantastic introduction on PJI, so I'm not going to talk more about it as an organization, but a little bit about my background. So I spent the beginning years of my activism and community activism working on women's issues. I was a single teenage mom who found incredible barriers throughout the system to raising our kid. So the first advocacy that I started doing was about the right to parent the kids that you have and the barriers that show up to being able to do that. And I did that in a municipal government commission that I ran for a couple of years before moving to the board of a feminist organization that really focused its work on the poor and the folks who were having the same sorts of barriers that I had when I was starting out. I went off to law school, and now I work as an attorney. And in Louisiana, I really focused my time on the criminal justice system. So I led the team on criminal justice reform work at Southern Poverty Law Center, where we looked at excessive sentences, where we looked at the barriers at the start of the system that make it so very likely that you'll be detained. And we looked at prison conditions issues, and I've since moved to PJI, and am happy to talk about both what I saw in terms of immigration, because frankly, immigration detention is part of mass incarceration. These are the same facilities that are holding our community members, but also about sentencing of women and the trends that we're seeing on the time that women are serving.
Great. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. And again, because it's a close crowd, we can treat this more of a discussion. So if there's things that you guys want to insert in terms of questions or comments, please feel free to go ahead and do so. So as a general matter, women actually make up a really small fraction of the incarcerated population across the country, although that number has increased by roughly 700% since 1980. As a result, the challenges women face in their time in jails and prisons in a system primarily designed for men too often go unrecognized and unaddressed by lawmakers. Particularly, we're finding with budgeting and allocation of resources within the system. So, Dolphin, my first question is for you. As part of your work at Operation Restoration, you spent a lot of time meeting with women who are currently incarcerated at Hunt and Jetson. In your opinion, what differences in programming, resources, and educational opportunities exist for women as compared to men who are incarcerated in Louisiana?
Sure. So I'll start by saying that I know of, there's 16 different programs inside of the prisons, and there's only, of the 16, 4 were at LCIF, which is the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women. Since the flood, I would venture to say maybe 2, and they're not up and running because of the dislocation of the leads. One of the programs that was very intricate in my success now was the office systems program that was there. Right after I was released 7 years ago, that very program was snatched out of the prison. We all know that even at McDonald's, you're going to need to know how to fill out an application online. At the time that I took the program, I knew nothing about it, right? So had it not been for just that basic tutorial, I don't know what would have happened when I was released. Didn't know how to use a cell phone when I was released, which is not unique to just me. Women are coming home after serving, 5, 6, 7 years in prison and not knowing how to use a cell phone. When I went in, cell phones were not there. Again, not unique. But when we talk about programming, one of the things that our organization thrives on when it comes to women is education. For a long time, we were having conversations like this, and women's issues, women's directly impacted women were not being a part of that conversation, weren't even being brought up in the conversation, which is how I began this work. Sitting in some of those meetings, hearing the data and listening to the conversations, yet never hearing anyone talk about what I had gone through, what led me to prison, and what happened to me once released from prison. So again, when we talk about programming, the disparities are great. And that was before the storm, before the flood. There were only 4 of those 16 programs inside of the women's prison. Today, and that was upholstery, culinary arts, office systems, can't off my head called the other one. I think welding was one that they added when they took out office systems, right? It's not to say women can't weld, but if you're a woman that goes in at my age and comes out, when I came out over 40 and have some of the health issues that I came out with, like sciatica and bad spinal stenosis, those type of things, yeah, welding wouldn't have been an option.
Thank you. Michelle, Louisiana has done public records requests regarding the treatment of women being detained, sometimes for weeks or months, at the parish jails across the state. Can you tell us what type of specialized resources, if any, you have found are available for women in those facilities?
So in 2017, Louisiana submitted a public records request to the Department of Corrections in all 64 parishes. And the request included information regarding on-site services provided for pregnant people and the facility policies on pregnancy management and care. And nearly half of the parishes didn't even respond to the records request. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by that. Of those that did, the information was kind of all over the place. So very few of them have any sort of policy that specifically addressed pregnancy management and care, is what we found. We also found, several of them honestly just responded to our request with an email that said we don't house women in our facility. And maybe they don't for long periods of time, but I think it's pretty unreasonable to think that that there's not a jail somewhere in Louisiana that hasn't held a woman there for some period of time. So I guess one of the things that we really did find was that the Department of Corrections pregnancy care policy is actually pretty comprehensive and aligns with a lot of the best practices policy. But the problem is that the policy in most cases hasn't been adopted or implemented in the jails, and that's where most incarcerated people are actually being held, and they can be held there for months and months and months, certainly through the entire duration of a pregnancy. But the Department of Corrections policy includes things like pregnancy testing, routine and high-risk prenatal care, managing chemically addicted pregnant people, comprehensive counseling and assistance, appropriate nutrition, postpartum follow-up, and I think all of that sounds really great on paper. And I think that, I wish that Pam was here to talk a little bit about the efforts that she's making to ensure that kind of care and all of those services are available to the pregnant people inside the LCIW facilities. But, there's really, it's scattershot in terms of all of the jails. So some of the parishes responded with outlines of what their policy says that they are going to provide. So things like prenatal vitamins, increasing the amount of food, and increasing the nutritional quality of food for pregnant people, assigning them to lower bunks, and offering parenting classes. So we think those are great. We've actually been working, we've kind of put together some best practices and kind of highlighting some of the parishes that seem to have good policies on paper, and now we're sort of encouraging the other parishes to adopt those kinds of policies and practices. But I think that one of the things that's important is that the Department of Corrections needs to assume some role in sort of holding them accountable. Because right now, we really just don't have very much information about whether these policies are actually really being implemented as written.
I'm Reverend Anderson with the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison Reform Coalition, and my question goes to three things. One, I'm interested in whether East Baton Rouge Parish Prison was one of the ones that actually responded to the FOIA request.
I certainly do not think that they are on, they're not on my best practices list. Let me look that up. I'll come back to you.
My second question has to do with the issue around when you said that there's no good data on who's pregnant in the prison, and yet they do daily counts. They submit for medical care. They submit in a number of ways where that data should actually exist. And so my question becomes, if that data is not being provided, is there a mechanism to force that issue? Because at least here with what we're doing, we know there's at least 3 or 4 places that should be showing up. Whether it shows up is one thing, but we know it should show up in a couple of places, including, like we have privatized prison care. So they invoice a month and they invoice by services.
Right. So to that, I would say they're not, the data may be collected in some way, but it's not being reported. And so I think there's a couple mechanisms in order to force that kind of reporting. And that would be, one is advocating for a change in DOC policy and having that change, being applied to all of the jails. And then the other would be to go to the legislature and ask them to pass a law requiring that kind of reporting. And if they were to do that, I would encourage that to be made publicly available, like published to a website, rather than having to use the limited resources of nonprofit advocacy organizations going after them with public records requests. But yeah, I do think that there's some mechanisms to force that.
And I just want to say before I ask my third question, that I'm so pleased that you all are here, because one of the organizations I partner with is doing the infant mortality project here in East Baton Rouge Parish, and my sorority Alpha Kappa Alpha, and our Women's Council of Greater Baton Rouge, because we're going to share what you all have shared with us today, and hopefully we'll be able to show them this presentation so that we can move forward on some of the hopefully recommendations that you all plan on sharing with us. But one of our big concerns on the healthcare piece here at East Baton Rouge Parish is the lack of monitoring, of any external monitoring. And so one of my questions, because you pointed out that you all are recommending some best practices that are on paper, but has there been a monitor who has gone and verified that a policy on paper is actually being implemented?
I would say no. Yeah, certainly, and not at a statewide level. I think there are mechanisms, like for example in Orleans Parish, where there's consent decrees and police monitors, and there are different sort of independent entities that can do that kind of monitoring, but it's certainly not being done at a statewide level. And just to answer your question on East Baton Rouge, they responded with their policy on the use of restraints, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but no information on their pregnancy management care policy.
Well, we're going to stay on the topic of pregnancy for a little bit. Just a fact to share with everybody, approximately 9,000 pregnant women across the country are held in jails or prisons each year, which I found a really high number, especially since it would seem like a really good reason not to keep a woman in jail or prison would be because she's pregnant and needs specialized care. John, as part of your work as a civil rights attorney, you have investigated and litigated several cases involving women who are mistreated or misdiagnosed when they go into labor while being held in jail. You told us a little bit about one of your cases in your introduction, but could you tell us more about what patterns or practices you're seeing common and frequently used across various facilities.
Sure. So the case that she is talking about is Tiffany Woodward's case. Tiffany Woodward has someone who, as a young person, has struggled with drug addiction most of her life since she was 11 years old. She became a serious heroin addict when she was 16. She got pregnant when she was 22 and was put in jail by her probation officer because she had a dirty urine test indicating that she was using drugs while she was pregnant. And she was put in jail because she had previously been at outpatient centers that she had walked away from. But when she was in jail this particular time, she was in Gretna, and she'd been there about a day. And she was taking medication to treat her detoxification. It's safe medication for people who were pregnant. And she was put in a cell on Thursday nights, about 6 o'clock. She started going to labor. And this cell is in the infirmary. It has a window on the door of the cell. And there's only about 3 cells out of 14 used for women. And the cells for women have kind of a piece of paper, a poster board over the window, so you can't see in or out of the women's cells. They say they do that for the women's protection and privacy. And so to look at the cell, you literally have to lift up this piece of paper. And so variously, throughout this 12 hours where she was in labor, she was complaining about the pain she was having. She was complaining she was bleeding. At one point, a nurse did come to the window and she told her what was going on. She said, "Oh, those are just Braxton Hicks contractions. You're only 7 months pregnant, so you can't be going into labor." They gave her a napkin for the blood. She used that and she flushed that down the toilet, so she didn't have any evidence that she had used it. So they thought that she was kind of faking this. And as the night grew into the morning, she was going in, had increasing pain, of course, started screaming, asking for help, kind of begging for help. And there was no one at the door. No one came in her cell, check her vitals, much less pull her out of there and take her to the hospital. And she gave birth to her child about 5:30 in the morning in the toilet of her cell. And to her horror, the baby didn't make a sound for 15 minutes while she was screaming for correctional officers to come in and help her. They finally did. They kind of swooped the baby up. The baby was miraculously still alive, and took the baby and the mother to the hospital. Thankfully, they're still living. And you know, in that jail in particular, we're going to have patterns that you see. That jail has a private health care provider, Correct Health, that does a very, very poor job at providing health care to prisoners. Their bottom line is profit margin, not quality of care. They actually have one psychiatrist for the entire jail of about 950 inmates. They have one doctor who's there on Wednesday morning for 4 hours who just deals with the people in the infirmary kind of needing medication. So they're not trying to give health care to anybody. So I think and on top of that, so she went to a jail that had really, really poor health care. On top of that, I don't think they knew what to do. They don't have a policy about what to do when people are pregnant. We've asked for it. They don't have it. They don't know what to do when someone's in labor. They don't get any training on it. So I wonder if these nurses who we have yet to question, yet to depose, knew what they were supposed to do or knew that they had the ability to send this person to the hospital. You know, also at 3 in the morning, you call this doctor who only works 4 hours a week at $50,000 a year. That's his contract. And so she went into kind of a perfect storm of a jail that has a private health care provider that only cares about money and profit margin, that therefore provides really, really poor health care. And according to what I've seen, knows nothing about what to do with women who are pregnant. As part of that, we've found at least 2 other cases, I bet there's more, in this same jail with this same private health care provider, where a woman named Maria Mendoza was arrested for a a silly little thing involving a spat with someone else in her driveway. She was arrested for a misdemeanor, during which she was kind of roughed up by the arresting officer. She was about 5 months pregnant. She gets to this same jail that I just told you about in Gretna, and she starts to go into labor right there in intake, right there after she's booked. And they put her in a holding cell, and she is complaining, she's screaming, she's bleeding, and she gives birth, and they don't do anything. They don't take her to the hospital, they don't check on her, they don't do anything. And she gives birth about 2 in the morning, and the child is stillborn. The police report says that they enter the cell for the first time, and she is sitting on the floor, with her legs crossed, holding her baby, and she's crying uncontrollably. They send her to the hospital. The baby's pronounced dead about 10 minutes after it gets to the hospital. Another case was in the same jail, same private health care provider. An unfortunate woman named Sheena Lewis was put in jail, and she was going through withdrawal from heroin addiction. She similarly was in intake, got through intake, and they put her in population in this pod. It was a cell in an area of the prison for women, and the cell didn't close. And she was complaining about going into labor, the pain she was feeling, how far along she was. A nurse came and checked on her because she was insistent that the guard call the nurse, and took her vitals and checked on her and said she's fine. She's not in labor right now. And then 2 hours later, she gives birth in her cell. The baby in the toilet. Actually, the baby dies, born stillborn, and she lives. Thankfully, there was a homicide investigation done in that case. So, like I said, you have a perfect storm of these problems happening. And I get calls. I know I've gotten 2 calls since I took on this case of women being put in jail for probation violations who are pregnant in the same parish, in the same jail. So it's a problem that continues to happen, that will continue to happen, unless we do something about it. So that's what I've seen thus far in the case of
In a related sense, but also in a little bit more of a positive light of steps that we have as a state taken action and have tried to correct through legislation. Michelle, could you tell us a little bit about what's been done around the issue of pregnancy shackling in the state? And maybe, because Robert Anderson asked about it earlier, what kind of enforcement provisions are actually built into that legislation?
Thanks. Little known fact, in 2012, Louisiana actually did pass an anti-shackling law. It's called the Safe Pregnancy for Incarcerated Women Act. And it limits the use of restraints during the 2nd and 3rd trimester. It calls for the least restrictive use of restraints otherwise. Some specifics about it, it specifically prohibits pregnant people from being placed face down, or for electronic restraint belts, leg irons, or behind the back cuffs to be used. It prohibits restraints from being used during labor and delivery unless, and this is quoted from the statute, the pregnant person presents a serious threat to herself and others or a substantial flight risk. So anyone who has ever had a baby would understand that during labor and delivery, I don't think that anyone is capable of being a flight risk. And the statute really actually does empower medical providers to sort of step in and advocate on behalf of the pregnant people that they're treating to ask a corrections officer to remove the restraints. And I don't think that a lot of medical providers understand that the statute empowers them to do that. But I think that the most important provision of the law is actually the record keeping and reporting requirements, because it does require that the prison operators keep a record of each time restraints are used on a pregnant person. And what we ended up finding was that very few of them are doing that, or if they are doing it, they were not very forthcoming with those records. Yeah, I'll just say that. Did you want me to talk a little bit about like what the policies look like?
So that comes as with last year, Operation Restoration came forward with Giving for Incarcerated Women Act, which further focused on shackling because it wasn't. And there were cases where women were falling and having miscarriages because of the fall, because they were still being shackled. And so that goes to oversight. Even with the passing of the most recent policy, it's still, we still don't know if it's being done. And so that goes back to what you said about monitoring and oversight, which is what we should be bringing forward with any and every policy or piece of legislation, to watch the watchers. And I think the best to do that is grassroots, directly impacted, because we do have a dog in this fight. Though, you know, I will eventually say this, for every woman that has been incarcerated and is not free, we are not free until all of our sisters. So for us, though we bring past, for the legislation, that we get it passed, which then we fight the oversight.
Just talk briefly on an opportunity to increase oversight in the state of Louisiana. The basic jail guidelines are applicable to most of the local jails in Louisiana, but historically how this oversight happens is a very short form that someone routinely fills out. There's a few narrative comments sometimes that say something like, talked to people, folks seem happy, right? Like incredibly not what you would assume someone would be doing. You assume that they would be looking at the standards and looking for some evidence of compliance down the list of all of the standards. And what we see in these auditing reports is that's just not happening. This year during legislative session, a bill came forth to raise the amount of the per diem that sheriffs receive each day through DOC. And it's a complicated issue, right? Because nobody should be profiting off of the incarceration system. And we see so many communities that are relying more and more on their sheriff's offices, the jobs associated with incarceration. No one should be profiting. On the other hand, none of these facilities are spending enough money on the individual people who are being held there. They're not spending enough money on food. They're not spending enough money on programming. They're not spending enough money on medical. So it's a complicated conversation when we talk about per diems in these local facilities. And during the testimony, an organization spoke up and said, look, we don't know what we think about the per diem rates. We can't tell you. We're in this conflict because we don't like the system, and we can guarantee you that not enough money is being spent. But what we absolutely can't stand is that there isn't this level of oversight over the sheriffs. We see these audit reports, and they're not actually providing any oversight for the laws that are in place that are supposed to keep our family members safe, that are supposed to keep us safe, that are supposed to keep, that people have worked really hard to pass. Someone from DOC sat up and said, we do audits, they're very thorough, and like sat back down. Attorney Jackson brought the bill, and she amended it on her own accord, sought its amendment, to say, we need to look at oversight at DOC. And so what she put in the bill, which passed and is tied to the funding, is an opportunity this year to speak out and to talk about what a real audit system should look like and what level of oversight should happen over the sheriff's offices. Now, we don't know what will come through from that, right? It's an opportunity for input, but I highly recommend that everybody who has bills that these local facilities should be following spend some time engaging in that process, because if there isn't that level of engagement, I think it'll be reflected on the next time we talk about how DOC's oversight isn't strong enough. And in the best case scenario, we can make some changes to the basic jail guidelines that require better oversight and that incorporate the voices of women, that incorporate the pregnancy bills and the other parts of the laws that we'd like to change. And I'm sure many of the things that Ms. Baton Rouge would like to see enforced.
Who actually was the sponsor of that original bill you talked about?
Attorney Jackson.
Oh, 2000.
The use of restraints bill, it was, Senator Danny Martini, who's no progressive, like, not at all. So, yeah, it was interesting. The other thing that I would say is, thank you for lifting that up, because I do think that it is really important. You know, oftentimes we scream loudly that we want the public to be involved, and then when the process is set up for the public to weigh in, we don't take that next step, and so I think that's an important thing to say. But I also just think that, you know, people need to know what their rights are, and all of us can play a role in that. Any of us who, you know people, love people who are incarcerated, who are pregnant and incarcerated, you know, should tell them that this is, you know, this is the law, these are your rights, that, you know, this facility is required to treat you in this particular way. I think it's really important for attorneys to, you know, to be informed and to be able to be sharing that information with their patients. The healthcare providers that are part of, you know, a part of this need to really understand. And I think the challenge for us is not really knowing, you know, not really knowing the cases in which these laws are actually being violated, because we'd be very interested in finding that out, so that we could, you know, take these facilities to court and force them to comply with the laws.
And I don't have a lot of questions, but you kind of breaking my heart here. You know what? We have correct health that we're going through that contract, we're applying all of it's a hideous contract. But it's a hideous contract because our policymakers signed a hideous contract, and there's no oversight. And one of the things that I'm concerned about, obviously, we're in call out, we do a lot of things, but the truth is, issues like this, I sit, for instance, on our capital areas of free implementation. The monies that were allocated were not allocated to any of the priorities we would have thought, meaning employment, housing, transportation. But this is an issue that is so important, it didn't even come up. I'm on our Louisiana Behavioral Health Advisory, which is a statewide advisory board. And we've had conversations about particularly the Department of Health programs on opioid addiction, and there's, I think, one housing unit that's available for pregnant women, and there's supposed to be a couple of grants that were let for incarcerated women. And I don't know that most of those players even know half of what you have put out here. And one of the things that concerns me is that, you know, I always hear about how we, the public, are supposed to come to meetings that happen when most of us got to go to work, in rooms that if we find it, we're lucky, when we get notice of it. And I guess one of my concerns is how do we sort of reproduce, y'all are under that, is how do we get the information you all are sharing into enough hands to make a difference? Does that make sense? Because when you told us a story about this woman, and we're in call out every day, and it's only been recently the judges and commissioners even asked why somebody is not there when they tell them they're in lockdown. And they don't report out who's in the infirmary, and they don't report out why they're in the infirmary. And so there are barely guys looking in the system anyway. And then for us, I can only speak for this parish, we have no interpreters down in the jail, but we're 287G signing. So our sheriff has locked us into a system where people who will not be able to communicate because there's nobody to communicate with will be there. And I suspect this issue is going to be really important in that population. And so I'm just asking the legitimate question that we are advocating, but the truth is that it's amazing to hear you all, so pleased that you're here. But we we need to figure out how to replicate you in terms of getting your information and your knowledge base out and help us to figure out how to make that happen.
I would be nice about to follow this chair, right? So, perception is everything, and it's not. I sit here speaking to you as a woman with direct impact. I educate my community. I still live in public housing. I still live in the same communities that I used to live in. I'm still there. I'm not in the one I was raised in, but I'm in another. But I go to the one that I was raised in every single day because my community needs to see hope. And I know they're scared because I was once scared. I don't know if I, back then, if I spoke up, if for some reason they would find a reason to evict me. I didn't know that I had rights then. And I still would not know if I didn't surround myself by people that did know and they taught me. So I would task you with educating your community, and then your community to educate their family members. And not everybody, and I'm gonna say this loud. Not everybody is gonna wanna fight with you, but they're gonna want you to fight for them. And it's okay. Take those that wanna vote and you build. And we're not gonna get it all changed overnight. We might not get it changed in my lifetime. But if we keep going, if we keep fighting, if we keep saying enough of this is enough of this, and I cannot sit here, and you don't know me, but they know me, I will not say what's wanted to be heard. I'm gonna say what needs to be said. It ain't about playing nice with each other. It's about what keeps you up at night. If what keeps me up at night doesn't keep Michelle up at night, it's okay. But Michelle can't expect me to play nice with her because it ain't keeping her up at night. It's keeping me up at night. That's how you build what you see here. Take out the personalities because y'all not gonna like each other. But what is the goal? And that's what you do. What's the goal?
When we talk about programs, having been a formerly incarcerated person, recently on one of our local parish prison tours, women are not given the opportunity for work release programs. One of the comments associated with that from the official was, well, they may come back pregnant, then what? So they're kept on the grounds to do menial or whatever opportunities present themselves there. What can be done to balance that? The other thing with your situation, well, I guess I should stop right there, but the other question would be, what happens to the baby once it was delivered through all the trauma that the mom experienced? What's the next process step of what happens to the infant?
So, to answer your question about the work release, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
And I've heard that as well. And it pissed me off the same way it just did when you said it. But for me, women can't get themselves pregnant.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be held responsible.
Yes.
If we're gonna hold women responsible, that they're gonna get pregnant, that's why they can't go to work release.
Yes.
Well, women can't get themselves pregnant. Which is another disparity in how we treat men versus how we treat women. Right? When I go to visit the prison, women are screaming about wanting to work at the barracks, right? That same issue.
Yeah.
But they may get pregnant. But they may not get pregnant.
And it's
So we're not gonna allow opportunities based on what might happen. And then the other part of that is, when you talked about the healthcare provider, spending 3 to 4 hours a week, the gynecologist, that is absolutely insane. One of the things that was very, very prevalent when I was in was women having hysterectomies, right? So it was almost mandated at times. You know, but had I known then what I know now, would I have did something different? I don't know. But while then I had hysterectomy, because my doctor visits, my hospital trips became too many, right? To go back to the dignity bill, we had to create a bill that said you must give women an unlimited amount of sanitary napkins, right? So what did DOC do? They went from 12 to 24. That's not an unlimited amount. Something that simple is to ask that women, when they need them, provide. So instead of giving them 12 pads, they double it. It's 24 now. But they would tell us that they're giving unlimited amounts. Not happening. But what about that woman that, like many of us women, have those issues where hysterectomy is somewhere in the future, that 24 just won't do. Then what? And my family hasn't sent me any money to purchase one. Then what? Or I asked Michelle for 2 of hers and she get caught giving it to me. Now we both get a write-up and I can't see my kids because of that write-up. Then what? These are the things that we are fighting each and every day. Something that's simple. So we will absolutely always look at the big picture, but we have to stay here sometime and think about what women are really, how women are suffering inside prisons. Every woman in this room right now understands what it's like to have cramps and understands what it's like to soil your clothes. But I have to pass a law to get some dignity in life. That's what we need.
John, did you want to answer the question about what happens to the babies after birth?
I don't know. I know in the case I'm dealing with, the mother and the child were taken to the hospital shortly thereafter. But otherwise, I don't know. And doctors have policy about what to do. They certainly don't have the capability to deal with childbirth in the infirmary in the jails I'm dealing with. In the jail I'm dealing with. So it's the best I have.
Well, can anyone else answer that part for me?
So they're, in most of the jails, they're transferring, and in prisons as well, they're transferring to a hospital to give birth. That's how it's supposed to be done at any rate. And they're also supposed to have a plan with the incarcerated person about what is going to happen. Is there a family member that's going to come and take the baby? Are you going to give the baby up for adoption? Or if there's nobody and they don't want to give the baby up for adoption, the baby will go into DCFS. So, yeah, so in general, that's pretty much what happens. And if the baby goes into DCFS, it is very, very, very difficult for that mom to ever get her baby back.
And is there a time associated between delivery and release of
24 hours. 24 hours.
So like
Yes,
PTSD?
before they have to go back. Yes. And the baby doesn't go back.
And does one thing, with the healthcare process, is the mom receiving after the 24-hour time, does she get any kind of mental health or emotional social work treatment? I know social workers are limited within prisons also. So I would just assume that's a little bit of post-traumatic stress right here. So is there any kind of mental health or emotional stability?
I would say in most circumstances, probably not.
I'll say, and somebody on this panel may know better than I think that there used to be a program at the old LCAW where children could come spend more time with with their mothers than just the normal visitation period. And I think there was a specific space for that was created, that they've talked about building into whatever new LCAW is eventually built. However, it's already been 3 years, and we don't know if there are plans right now or what those look like for a new LCAW. So one place in which we may be able to do some advocacy around mothers being able to spend more time with their children is look to some best practices that are being used across the country, where after mothers give birth, they're actually allowed weeks and months where the baby lives with them in a special place in the prison, which is designed not to look like a prison. It's designed to look much more like a place that you would want to have a young infant spending time with their mother right after birth. But that all takes money, and it takes effort, and it takes legislation, so we can try as hard as we can, because that system seems like it's definitely failing, and it ends up with a lot of parents losing parental rights right from off the bat, right when the baby's born, if there's not a family member who can show up and take responsibility for that child right now.
So, there was never a space like you just mentioned.
Okay.
We pray that happens, but there was a day that